What's up, this is Nak3d Eli, the mostly unclothed gamer. Welcome to my final Halo 5 ranking video, summarizing and improving upon my past 6 videos where we discussed every major aspect of an ideal Halo 5 competitive ranking system. I want to share this ideal system with 343 Industries so that Halo 5 will have the best ranking system ever to grace the gaming world. And I'd really appreciate if you enjoyed the video that you share it with 343 via the forums, Twitter, or any avenue that you're comfortable with. My ideas for the Halo 5 ranking system draw on a decade of experience with the Halo franchise, other games like League of Legends, Call of Duty, StarCraft 2, and others, as well as feedback from you guys in the comments on my past 6 videos, all the responses to my surveys on Twitter, conversations I've had with multiplayer designers, and research I've done to make sure that my points are both valid and possible, at least in theory and mathematically. I'll wrap up the video with final tips and direct you guys to 2 links, one to a Google Drive copy of my outline for this video if you want to share these ideas in a professional context. You know, you can like copy paste it or present it in a professional format, and 2, the official thread will be on Halo Waypoint. I'll have it at the top of the description, and I hope you guys give me your personal feedback on my ideas for this system, whether they be positive or constructive criticism. Alright, so let's dive into my goals with this ranking system. First and foremost, I want to provide improved sustainability and fun for Halo 5 matchmaking. Second, I want to create a ranking environment that allows both competitive and casual players to flourish. Third, I want to motivate player behavior through a sense of progression and clearly defined status symbols. 4, I'd like to maintain the integrity of the game and player experience by reducing exploitation. 5, I want to create an organic Halo 5 esports scene, which may be ambitious, but I'll get into that. And 6, ultimately, if all of these things happen, we will be making 343 Industries truckloads of money, and better, awesomer Halo games will come in the future. So now let's go into the 4 main categories. We have social ranks, competitive ranks, matchmaking, and cheating. Let's begin with social ranks. So a social rank will encompass a progression system that's based on experience or time playing the game. For example, every game you play, you get XP or credits, right? And it's based on what either the number of games played or the amount of time that you've put into matchmaking. In my opinion, this system should never max out. For example, in Halo 3, we see that you can get tens of thousands of XP and keep winning XP with every game. That way, when players see your service record, they see just how many games you've won or how much you've played the game, and that should be a point of pride for the player. This is different than, let's say, Halo Reach, where once you hit Inheritor, you never got credits again. It was actually a drag. I remember I became demotivated after hitting Inheritor because not only were there no unlockables to unlock anymore, right? You get that sweet haunted helmet, but you also can't show that you've played X number of games past that or have X number of XP. 2, for this point, I also think that this information should be publicly available, as I said, as a status symbol, both on your profile and next to your gamer tag in matchmaking. And 3rd, I think that the winning team should get a 10% boost in the amount of social rank per game, right? So the losing team will still get a nice amount of XP, feel like they're accomplishing something, but the winning team will get just 10% more. So competitive players actually can go through the ranking system a bit quicker. Now, this is an arguable point, but I want to make the case that these XP or credits, whatever, should buy only cosmetic upgrades. So cosmetic items, I argue, are sustainable, whereas gameplay changing items are not. So think of it this way. When I played Halo Reach and I used my credits to unlock armor, that wasn't changing my status entering the battlefield. I didn't go in with stronger armor, stronger weapons, right? Whereas in Halo 4, as I ranked up higher, I unlocked goods that new players did not have access to. So I think that having gameplay changing items in a ranking system, which actually most FPSs do these days, so I'm not a fan of, means that players who buy your game after release will always be at a disadvantage in matchmaking. Okay, this doesn't make sense to me. I think the Halo magic, right? A lot of people say, what makes Halo Halo? And I think Halo magic includes an even playing field, that everyone off the start has the same access to weapons, abilities, armor, health on that battlefield. So if there's a jetpack in the game, have the jetpacks littered around the map, make the players work for powerful abilities and powerful gameplay changing items. To put this into context, Let's say you have a guy who plays basketball. He plays more basketball than guy number 2. That doesn't mean the first guy has a shorter hoop to work with, right? It's not like a guy who plays more basketball has a shorter hoop and can score more points. But that's how I sort of see FPSs these days, as giving advantages just for people who play more, okay? So that's all I have to say about cosmetic upgrades. Now, I think that social ranks should comprise both global social rank and playlist-specific ranks. A great example of this was Halo 3's social ranking system, where it rewarded players who specialize in certain playlists. So if you played 10,000 games of SWAT and you won 5,000 of them, then you'd have 5,000 XP and you'd be, a general grade 5 in SWAT. And that is sick. When I'm playing team doubles and I'm playing against 50s who have 3,000 XP in the playlist, that's a very respectable status. That's like, these guys play this all day. This is going to be a great game. And whether you win or lose, you know that they're worthy opponents, right? And also for players who are playlists that form communities like BTB, Big Team Battle, having that XP, just a simple social rank per playlist next to your gamer tag, would drive user behavior so much, it's unbelievable, that people will want to specialize so hard in each individual playlist. And my second point here is that this will actually help players make friends over Xbox Live. I think that it's much more difficult to make friends with the new party system and everyone just chats to their other friends in party chat while they're in matchmaking. This will actually show you, like, this guy plays thousands of SWAT games. I love SWAT, he loves SWAT. We now have something in common. I can add him as a friend and then we can go and dominate SWAT together, right? So my next point is that global social rank should require 800 to 1,200 hours to max out. And a good example of that would actually be the Halo Reach Inheritor. I played 11 months straight, 4 hours on average every day until I hit Inheritor. And it took me, calculate the hours, probably around 1,000 to 1,200 hours to hit that. And that motivated me, right? Having a high goal motivated me to play more. So if you, unlike, let's say a counter example would be Halo 4, lots of players hit rank 130 within the first 2 months, right? Most of the population that was in the previous Halos, who, let's say hardcore players, once they maxed out, they lost motivation to play. They had no greater goal. There obviously wasn't even a competitive ranking system to play in. So I think you absolutely have to have a social rank that takes a large number of hours. I estimate around 800 to 1,200 to be a reasonable goal, but also a very high, goal to look forward to. And also respectable, right? When you see someone with the max rank, you should ooh and ah at that, right? It's like, damn, he put a lot of time into this, not just, oh, everyone's a 130, right? So next point, playlist-specific social ranks, I think should require 400 to 600 hours to max. So if you want to get max rank in, say, BTB, then, put in at least 400 hours. I think that's a reasonable goal. The social ranking system should tie in cohesively with competitive ranks. Again, Halo 3 was a fantastic example of this. And so we see that you had not only your global experience and your global rank, but also playlist experience and playlist rank. And you couldn't rank up in your global rank until you passed both a certain competitive level and social level. So I think if you can do that with Halo 5, make both systems, the social and competitive, tie in cohesively, that would just integrate the experience and make players want to try out both systems as opposed to just playing inside one. All right, so playlist count. This is a debatable point, but I think that you should have 75% of your playlist choices be social playlists, and then later you'll see, I think, that the other 25% should be competitive playlists with competitive ranks. Social ranks should be symbols, not numbers. So symbols, to me, provide meaning. They are true status symbols, right? And it also provides sort of a curiosity about your ranking system. When I was playing, Halo 2 and I saw that moon or that little Halo ring, I thought, wow, that looks really cool. I don't even know what rank that is, he's so high, but I'm going to go online and look it up, and then that's going to link me to other resources, and maybe I'll find YouTubers and articles and content on your website. 343 Industries could even host the official ranking system so that when players do their research on what each symbol means, they can find out more information through your site. And that draws traffic into Halo Waypoint. We also, let's see, have Halo Reach as an example of that, right? Inheritor was a symbol, for example. But you could also do both. You could have your number rank, let's say, 130, and you could also have the inheritor above it. So that would leave players less curious, but also potentially less confused about what your symbols mean or how highly ranked a certain symbol is. And my final point is that quitting should subtract social rank, whatever it is, XP, credits, and actually quitting should prevent players from entering a new game until the old one ends. So the reason I think quitting is really important is because it maintains the integrity of your game. We see in the recent Halo games that with very lax penalties where people don't lose much, they are very likely to quit out when maybe their team's at a disadvantage or they just don't feel like playing anymore and they leave their teammates hanging, right? And join in progress isn't enough to fix that, especially off the start when your team's getting spawn killed or whatever. So I think that a great way to set up this system would be that it scales with recent quit per game ratio so that this deters chronic behavior. Essentially, if they have a high amount of quits in a low number of games, you see that this is a chronic behavior, and you can then put quitters into different categories where the heaviest quitters at the highest quit per games ratios are prevented from playing for 1 day. And then if they continue that behavior after this, that's followed by, let's say, a 1 week ban as the ratio thresholds are passed. I want to make a quick point on a group that I think used to be penalized for this unnecessarily, international players. However, since we now have dedicated servers to prevent lagouts, international players shouldn't be sharing this unnecessary burden and getting unnecessary penalties. So that is all I have to say about social ranks. All right, let's move on to competitive ranks. First, I think that there absolutely should be conditions for entering ranked playlists, such that ranked playlists are restricted to experienced players. So, for example, you can have an access requirement of something comparable to 25 to 50 hours of game time. So some sort of milestone, let's say hitting a certain social rank or collecting all the upgrades you have in the game, or basically waiting until each Spartan sort of balances the playing field in their kit. Right, so that everyone going into ranked is on sort of a balanced playing field, and you don't have high-level players outdoing their opponents who are low-level who don't have access to the same goodies. So that's just sort of an example of how you could work it into something that doesn't use cosmetic, that does use gameplay-changing items. And then also, the really important piece about this condition is that it solves issues with new accounts disrupting the system. So you don't have high-level players just starting new accounts and ranking up really fast because they'd have to play a lot of social until they hit ranked. Second, it eliminates boosters, or at least reduces the amount of boosting because players don't want to have to make new accounts for two reasons. One, it takes a long time to invest in a booster now, and two is that the goal of boosting was to hit max rank in a short number of games. Like 13 games was the best boost it's seen in Halo 3 to get them to a 50. But if you require 25 hours of game time on a new account, then players aren't going to make new accounts to get boosted. Sure, they might want to get boosted when they're already in ranked, but it will, I think, reduce boosting overall. And also it will solve issues such as other random factors that will convolute early rank filtering, right? Having, let's say, skilled players being in the same pool as unskilled players. So I think the number of placement matches should be 30. If you've taken statistics, you know that 30 is a very good number for a sample size to get a normal distribution and get a real idea with statistical variation and deviation of standard deviation about their actual skill level. And then I've heard of this technique, Gaussian density filtering, and also ELO are both very quick to place you into your appropriate skill level. So I'm not going to go into the details of that, but those matchmaking designers out there know what I'm talking about. Divisions. So I truly think that Halo 5 should have divisions in the game. Examples would be, let's say, 5 divisions. Let's see, I'm counting 6 divisions where, let's say, you could have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and then maybe a pro or professional level above that. Maybe you could start with Flood, Covenant, then Human, Forerunner, Precursor, or what about Grunt, Jackal, Elite, Hunter, Spartan, Forerunner, right? Some sort of really cool progression system where the names could actually be tied to the Halo universe, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. A lot of games like to use medals like bronze and gold these days. I think that the highest division should comprise the top 100 to 200 players for esports. So this would be the, the top level, quote unquote, pro that only fits up to 200 players. I picked that number because I think if you take all the teams that compete at MLG tournaments, both free-for-all and 4v4, that you have roughly 200 extremely skilled players with a lot of experience in the competitive Halo scene, and that every single one of those traditional pros, new pros, should be able to fit in this bracket. And then this can actually link them to tournaments and the esports scene, right? So you'll have a table on your website of everyone who's in this sort of challenger division, is what they call it in League of Legends. And then if Halo or 343 Industries wants to actually get creative with Halo 5, they could maybe offer benefits, like the #1 person on the leaderboard gets flown in for free to the next MLG event, or whoever they have, their esports gaming contract with. And I also think it'd be really cool, I don't know how feasible this is, but you could show their tournament experience on their service record. So getting into this pro tier opens up a new little area on your service record and shows if you've been to a tournament or two. I don't know exactly how you'd work with the validation of that at tournaments. I just thought it was a cool idea. I'd throw it out there. All right, moving on. If you have divisions and you have this sort of conditional ranking system with placement matches, it's usually prudent to have seasons. So seasons are like it's basically what they tried to do in Halo Reach Arena, but it was very poorly executed because it was reset way too often. Every 1 month at first, and then every 3 months. I don't think a reset should happen for at least 6 to 12 months. And with each of those seasons should come a major sandbox update. This will keep the game fresh and also create hype so that old players who maybe maxed out on the old system or got rank locked, hopefully you won't have much rank lock issue, but it'll create new hype for them and give players new reasons to come back into your game. We also have, I think, a login bonus would be great for your competitive ranking system, where players are required to log in at least once per month to earn bonus points. You could also frame it that if they don't log in, then they lose points, sort of like in League of Legends. However, I don't think you should go crazy with this. I don't think that players should be extremely high skill level just because they play, right? I just think it's that you want some sort of motivational piece to keep gamers coming back, and this is sort of one tool that you can do that with. As for ranking up, I think this should be based on a win-loss ratio and your opponent's match history, right? So if you have a 50-50 win-loss ratio against low-level opponents, you're going to be low-level. But if you have a 50-50 win ratio after the long run against high-level opponents, you'll end up high-level. The way that will typically work is high-level players will start out with a positive win-loss ratio, and then as the games get more and more competitive, each player will level out at a roughly 50-50 win-loss. I think you could use a modified form of True Skill, Elo, or even Glico RD. I'll discuss that a little bit more in matchmaking. Next, we have playlist count. So ranked playlists, as I said earlier, should comprise about 25% of playlist choices. So that when players are feeling hardcore or want to match with their friends against competitive players, or even just want to get that number and see where they rank at compared to their friends, that they have options, not just one playlist, but at least a couple playlists, 2 to 3 if you're going to have, let's say, 10 playlists in the game. And that will obviously be your best playlist, right? 4v4 Slayer, and I don't know what the Halo 5 sandbox will look like, but whatever you think is your best 2 to 3 playlist, that's what should be in ranked. I want to just clarify, I think this is a given, but I just want to make sure that there's no join in progress for games unless a player lags out and wishes to rejoin the game. So join in progress is great if you want to get back into a game that has frozen or something, but otherwise you shouldn't let other players join a new game. This could create all sorts of uneven issues with ranking. This is a new idea I had for Slayer specifically, is that I think you should include, in addition to all the other ranks we discussed, so competitive and social ranks per playlist and globally, I think Slayer specifically should have a Slayer rank. So in the Slayer playlist, you would need to prove your individual skill in addition to your team skill. And this is the only playlist that will be based on your KDA, your kill death assist ratio, medals, and winning. And this is key also, without preset teammates. this rank is not allowed to go up if you go in with anyone on your team. I don't know how feasible it is to track that, but if you can somehow limit that parties of 2 don't access Slayer rank and only parties of 1 going into the Slayer playlist can improve their Slayer rank, that would really drive competitive players and just any individual who's alone to have something to do while they're alone. Ideas for MVP. So we've seen MVP in Halo 3, right? That was, I think at the time it was in Slayer, whoever had the most kills. In Objective, it was who had the most objective points, like the most flag caps or the most points in the kill. I think that with Halo 4, we evolved into a new form of MVP that actually is able to take points from all the cool things that you do, which includes flag caps, getting kills, distractions, you know, all these things, points that are factored out. I think it's a great system to use to detect a Halo 5 MVP every game. And here are my ideas for the MVP. If the MVP is on a winning team, they get an extra 10% bonus points for the match. So they get 10% bonus for winning and an extra 10% for being MVP. Now, if the MVP is on the losing team, that player should not lose points from their loss. So let me explain that, because this is a really important point that I developed talking to some friends, and I think it'd be awesome if you could institute this. You oftentimes have players who are highly individually skilled who sometimes end up with crap teammates, right? It just happens. Every now and then you get some bad luck. Most players tend to complain about it a lot, right? And they make it bigger, more of a big deal than it actually is. But I would love to give credit to individual skill when that player outdoes the entire enemy team. Like, you are doing something incredibly right if you are the MVP against a winning team of players that just destroyed you, right? Or even in a close game, if the losing team's MVP, if there's an MVP on the losing team, they should at least get something for that in the ranking system itself because of the effort and the skill that they put in. So I think this would be a really cool way, and players can finally stop saying, oh, I had bad teammates, because it's like, no, did you go huge? Were you the one having the biggest impact on the team? If so, you deserve credit for that. And let's see. Yes, I already said that. Okay, so visibility. This is a key thing here because there was no visible Halo ranking system in Halo 4, and it was very difficult to access your competitive rank in Halo Reach. Whereas in Halo 3, your ranks were completely public, right there on your service record, right there in the playlist for everyone to see, right? Two very different systems, public versus private. So I am a complete proponent of public status and having status symbols for people to achieve, but I will give you examples for both public and private visibility. So, you know, whatever 343 decides, here's some ideas for it. So for public visibility, there should not be a website required to access your rank information. It should be easily visible on your profile and your gamer tag in matchmaking, and it should instantly change after the game, ideally. And I know that the math is so fast in the ranking algorithms these days that this is very possible. However, if you don't want your information public to everybody, let's say you want it private because, you know, I know Frank, for example, didn't like the black market for Halo 3, and he said that people were just buying 50s just because of the 50. So if you wanted it to be private, then perhaps you could only have their competitive rank visible to friends and or teammates in lobby, right? So not anyone can see it. Maybe just your friends can see it, or maybe just your teammates in that particular game can see it, or maybe you can give them the ability to toggle how visible their rank is. So you can change it. For example, this could be a really easy toggle in your options. It could be on, let's say, 4 categories: public, friends, teammates, or invisible. And give players the choice whether they want to show off this status symbol that they work so hard for, this rank that they may be really proud of and others may not be proud of. So I think I'm always a proponent of choice, but if you had to go with public or private, I personally would go with public. I just think it drives player behavior more. Okay. As for next, we have matchmaking. So let's talk about the traits of a ranking algorithm. We already said it stabilizes at a 50-50 win rate, and it should assume that players improve incrementally over time. So that as you play more and more and more, your win rate should slightly improve and that would then allow you to restabilize at a new rate, but the ranking system should take that slight improvement into account to help you rank up. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but essentially, if you have a player come in and they're just like killing it, just destroying everybody, stomping face, then clearly they need to go up really quickly, or obviously someone's playing on their account, but you can't really determine that. And if players start failing dramatically, then we have other measures in place to see what that might be for. I'll get into that in my fourth thing on cheating. A more important point psychologically is I feel that players should feel like they're progressing for the whole season and not stagnating. This is difficult to do because if everyone improves incrementally over time, then no one really moves, right? So how do you get players to feel like they're constantly improving and actually beating out their opponents? This is something that I think has to be done very carefully, right? You don't just want to give everyone a boost over time. But in a sense, you do maybe want to make the ranking system a little bit more accessible as people become sort of rank locked. I don't know exactly how to fix the algorithm for it, but I would essentially start to remove history from a long time ago. Let's say it's like 4 months into the season, maybe you can start chipping away at the first month's losses and just start looking at other data to see if they've actually improved in the last 3 months or 2 months, and then re-gauge their rank off of that. And finally, we have you can use this to gauge map balance and adjust the player ranks accordingly. So for example, if red wins on map X, like red team, right, the red guys win on map X 60% of the time just because the map is unbalanced, then the blue team should receive higher level players in matchmaking. Now, ideally, in a perfect world, all maps will have a 50-50 win rate on blue and red. Everyone will start with the same power positions and power weapons, or at least asymmetrically balanced. However, we know from experience that this doesn't always happen. So if in your tests, Halo Waypoint 343 Industries notices this imbalance, they should very easily be able to tune the matchmaking so that the losing team gains players at a level that rebalances the win rate to 50-50. All right, moving on, I want the algorithm to extend the tightness on variable frequency to reduce fatigue. Essentially what that means is you don't want every game to be 49-49, neck to neck. You know, that gets exhausting after a while. In some games you just want to stomp face, and other games it's fun to just get steamrolled, right? So the way that I would word this is you would occasionally give players the opportunity to win against significantly higher level players. And then obviously if they do beat the significantly higher level players, then they get a huge boost in rank. And this could also help fight against rank lock. Obviously you don't want this to be so tight ever, like the variable frequency should never be so tight that matches cannot be found within 10 minutes. An example of this was Halo Reach Arena, sitting at single-digit Onyx. I literally have sat in the lobby for an hour with hundreds of other players playing Arena and did not get a game. And that is a problem. And that wasn't just single-digit Onyx. That was a lot of players in Onyx and other divisions. Part of it was population, but the biggest problem was the tightness on the variable frequency. So make sure, please, that players get games in a reasonable time, 15 minutes maximum. Next, we have what's called the Global Optimizer tool, as seen in StarCraft 2. So what this does is when groups are searching, let's say groups of 2 or groups of 3, the system, this tool specifically, will compare the group searching and it will update mix and match groups until it finds the best match. So I would say that mixed ranks should lean towards the highest level player within 5 ranks of them. In Halo 3, we saw that within 10 ranks. Here, I'm going to say it should be within 5 ranks. Simply because mixed rank squads tend to actually win a lot, in my experience. When you have a guy who's a low rating, he tends to be pretty good if he's playing with higher level players. Not always, tends to be though. And players typically don't like playing ranked with players much better than them anyways. So it always makes me suspicious to see these mixed squads. And I think that these mixed rank squads should be tracked each evening after 2 to 3 games. And if they have a high win rate, that they should get rated as simply just the highest ranked player. So that they start playing not mixed rank squads, but only highly ranked players. And they should the mixed group should deliver the same amount of rank points if they're beat by the opposing team. What I mean by that is that if you're playing, let's say, lower level players, the game will not give you as many rank points when you beat them, right? Because it was expected that you win that game. So when you have a mixed squad and let's say a level 10 in there dragging the average down, you won't get that many points if you beat them. But let's say he is a truly skilled player and he's playing with his high level buddies so that he can get easier matches. The game should treat them as simply a high rank group and should treat the level 10 like a level 40 or whatever, you know, a high rank is. And you should get maximum rank points for beating them as if they're just high ranks, not mixed ranks. So I hope that's clear. I think you should limit matching teams, full teams, or even sometimes teams that are 75% full, to twice per day. You know, you don't want to play the same people 2 games in a row, 3 games in a row, or all night, especially if you always lose to them, right? These games tend to be one-sided. So try and limit that to twice per day, if you can. And then finally, I strongly believe that that 343 should clip the top matchmaking ratings. What this means is that the top players, you know, they have a hidden elo or hidden number that validates their rank. So let's say that we have one player at 2,000, and that's like normal max rank. Now we have players at 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, which is, you know, the top 0.001%. That player all the way at 4,000 is going to have a real hard time finding other players at his level. So by clipping the top matchmaking ratings, in this case, let's say we just clip it at 3,000, then that will allow all the top players to find games in a reasonable time frame against players who are approximately their super high skill level. The reason that I also think that this should be clipped, like, you know, people argued on PC games like StarCraft that you shouldn't clip the ratings because then that, you know, that doesn't truly differentiate the uber skilled from the uber skilled. But I'm going to argue for Halo that it will not have millions of players in its population to sustain an infinite growth ladder. That I think to keep the system reasonable, you have to clip the matchmaking ratings and keep players playing. PC players tend to have a lot more patience when it comes to finding games. Console players do not. And finally, let's move on to cheating. So here we have modders and DDoSers are eliminated largely by dedicated servers. So that's fantastic. Second, we can eliminate boosters by limiting the growth per game on the algorithm. So let's say that I have a booster who just lost 400 games and then he plays with a player who's level 5, and the game will see that he's playing with a really low level player who sucks terribly. So if the level 5 wins, he must be a god. So in Halo 3, for example, people will jump 5 or 6 ranks at a time per game. Now, I think that if you just put in the algorithm that players can't move up by more than 2 ranks, you know, per game, then that will just eliminate boosters completely. That if you physically cannot boost due to the algorithm limits, then boosters have no job, right? They're essentially dead in the water. And if you can't do that, you can always limit them with ranked access anyways. But players will still boost if they're able to. Trust me, there will be hundreds of people and a whole black market opening up. So if you don't want that, please put in your algorithm some sort of limiting factor. And then finally, the hardest group to deal with, D-rankers. So these are players who are, let's say, high level, and then they want to be low level again. So they just start intentionally losing a lot of games. I think that to detect these players is very difficult, but not impossible. And I'm going to throw you some ideas your way, and I'd love more feedback on this. So I think you have to detect extreme pattern differences from the player's normal behavior. And here are six metrics which I think you can use to actually detect D-rankers. The first is quit rate. D-rankers tend to go in, kill their teammates a couple times, and quit out. Or just stand there, lose map control because they're not doing anything, and then after they see that they're losing, they quit out. So quit rate is one factor in this pattern. Second is suicide rate. If you can lose points by suiciding, players will suicide to intentionally lose. Third, team killing rate. If you lose points for team killing, people will team kill. Fourth, length of game time. These games tend to be shorter because their team's just getting steamrolled, right? So if you notice that this player is playing 5-minute games on average instead of 6-minute games on average, that's a huge difference over a large number of games. That is an easily detectable pattern difference. Fifth, a lack of movement in game. I don't know how realistic this is to track player movement. I know that we had heat maps in Halo 3, so I imagine you can track movement if you can track like kills where people died. And so if you see that they're just standing still, right, a lot of players will just start up the game, go get a drink of water, make some microwavable food, and then sit back down, and hopefully the game will be lost. So if you can track that these players are just standing still for very large periods of time in their games, that's another factor for this pattern. And then finally, you can look at their recent KDA ratio, which should tell you that if they're dying way more than they're used to and not getting, let's say, any assists and barely any kills, then that's another factor that you could detect. So I'm not saying any one of these gives away a D ranker, but when you put them all together, or at least 4 out of 6 of these, I'd say there's a very high probability that that person is D ranking, and the system should automatically detect this and ban them with the ban hammer. All right, so that is all I have for the 4 main categories. My final recommendations are that you don't abuse the Skinner box effect. Essentially, you know, in Halo 4, you get points for everything, and it's very visible. And then you get a medal. I guess the points didn't bother me, but the medals for everything, so that it made the medals meaningless. And you just threw stuff at players to unlock. It was too much. The Skinner box was on overload. So don't abuse that in Halo 5. Think very carefully about how you coordinate that psychological effect on a variable frequency pattern. And then finally, this is a request from the community. Please provide your API publicly for community sites like Halo Tracker to produce meaningful opt-in leaderboards that enhance your ranking system. I think if you allow the community to access these ranks, that it'll produce a meta rank system that will give players even more motivation to keep playing your game. All right, so that took a very long time. I hope you guys enjoyed it though. I certainly enjoyed talking about all of these ideas. I've been developing them for a very long time, which is why part of the reason why this video has taken so long for me to get out. Again, I have the link to the Google Drive outline of the whole video in the description. I'll have a link to the Halo rank wikis if you want to read more up on that. And then please check out the official thread where I'm going to post this and give me personal feedback on what you think. And let's make the thread sort of the official feedback for the ranking system in Halo 5. And that is all for this video. Please like and share with 343 and any of your friends who might be interested in the Halo 5 ranking system. Thank you so much for sitting through all this. If you did, you're a champ. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.